In a small, forgotten village nestled between rolling green hills and a winding river lived a boy named Jack. His home was a tiny, drafty cottage, its thatch roof worn thin by years of rain and sun. Every morning, Jack woke to the gnawing emptiness in his stomach and the quiet sigh of his mother. Her hands, once soft and nimble, were now calloused and weary from endless work. Yet they held a gentle strength that always comforted him. Their only possession of value was Daisy, an old cow with kind brown eyes and a bony frame. Daisy was more than just a cow. She was a silent companion, a symbol of their dwindling hope. Jack often sat beside her, whispering his secret wishes into her ear. Wishes for warmth, for food, for a life where his mother didn't have to worry so much. He longed to see her smile, a genuine, carefree smile, not the brave, tired one she usually wore. One particularly bleak morning, with the last loaf of bread gone and the pantry bare, Jack's mother looked at him with eyes full of unshed tears. "Jack, my dear," she began, her voice trembling, "you must take Daisy to market. Sell her for the best price you can get. It's our only way now." Jack's heart sank. Daisy? Their last friend? He nodded, a lump forming in his throat, and gently stroked Daisy's head. He understood. He had to be brave for his mother. As Jack led Daisy down the dusty path towards the bustling market town, his shoulders slumped. The thought of parting with Daisy filled him with a deep, aching sadness. He imagined the empty stall where she usually stood, the silence in the yard. He felt the weight of his mother's hopes and his own desperate wish for things to be different. He hadn't gone far when he encountered an old man, his face a road map of wrinkles, his eyes twinkling with an unusual light. The old man wore a cloak that seemed to shimmer with forgotten magic, and he leaned on a gnarled staff. "Good morning, young man," the old man croaked, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "Where are you off to with that fine cow?" Jack explained his predicament, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ah, a sad tale indeed," the old man mused, stroking his long white beard. "But perhaps not without a glimmer of hope. I have here." He paused, pulling 5 small, iridescent beans from a pouch at his waist. 5 magical beans. "Trade me your cow for these, and I promise you, they will bring you more fortune than any gold." Jack stared at the beans. They pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow, each one a miniature galaxy of greens and blues. His practical mind screamed, "No, a trick." But something in the old man's eyes, a profound knowing, stirred a tiny spark of wonder in Jack's heart. He thought of his mother's weary face, his own desperate wish. What if this was the answer to his silent prayers? Against all common sense, driven by a desperate hope and a child's pure belief in magic, Jack made the trade. He handed Daisy's lead to the old man, who vanished as quickly as he had appeared, leaving Jack clutching the 5 smooth, cool beans. He walked home, his heart a tumultuous mix of fear and a strange, burgeoning excitement. When he told his mother, her face crumpled. "Magic beans? Oh, Jack, we needed food, not foolish trinkets." In her despair, she snatched the beans and flung them out the window, tears streaming down her face. Jack watched them disappear into the twilight, his own hopes crashing down around him. He went to bed that night, feeling utterly miserable, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him like a heavy stone. But the next morning, a sight greeted Jack that stole his breath away. Where the beans had landed, a colossal beanstalk had sprouted overnight, its thick, emerald stem reaching higher than the tallest trees, piercing the clouds and disappearing into the sky. Its leaves were the size of dinner plates, shimmering with dew, and it seemed to hum with a silent, powerful energy. Jack's mother stood beside him, her mouth agape, her anger replaced by sheer astonishment. "Magic beans, indeed," she whispered. a new light dawning in her eyes. Jack, filled with an unshakable curiosity and a renewed sense of purpose, knew what he had to do. He had to climb. He had to see what lay at the top of this miraculous ladder to the heavens. With a determined nod to his mother, who now watched him with a mixture of fear and pride, he began his ascent. The climb was arduous. The beanstalk was slippery with dew, and the wind tugged at his clothes, but Jack pressed on, his small hands gripping the sturdy vines, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Higher and higher he went, past the familiar rooftops of his village, past the tallest oak, until the world below shrank to a patchwork quilt of greens and browns. He climbed through the soft, swirling mist of the clouds, the air growing colder and thinner. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he emerged above the clouds into a land bathed in an ethereal, golden light. Before him stretched a vast, flat plain, unlike anything he had ever seen. And in the distance, partially obscured by a gentle haze, stood an enormous castle, its towers piercing the sky like giant stone fingers. It was a place of impossible scale, a world built for beings far larger than himself. He felt a shiver of apprehension, but his courage, fueled by the memory of his mother's hopeful eyes, propelled him forward. As he approached the castle, the sheer size of everything became overwhelming. The gate was taller than his cottage, the path stones wider than his bed. He found a small, unlocked side door, barely a crack in the colossal wall, and slipped inside. The interior was dimly lit, cavernous, and filled with the faint, earthy smell of damp stone and something else, something vaguely metallic and unsettling. He crept through a vast kitchen, where pots and pans the size of bathtubs hung from hooks, and a table stretched longer than his entire house. There, stirring a monstrous cauldron, was a woman of immense stature, the giantess. She had a stern face, but her eyes held a flicker of unexpected kindness. Jack, trembling, hid behind a stack of enormous wooden barrels. He heard the giantess sigh, a sound like a gust of wind. Fee-fee-fo-fum. A booming voice suddenly echoed through the castle, making the very stones vibrate. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Jack's blood ran cold. This was the giant. He pressed himself further into the shadows, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The giantess, with surprising quickness, scooped Jack up and hid him beneath a large, overturned wooden bowl on the kitchen table. "Hush, my dear," she whispered, her voice surprisingly soft despite its volume. "My husband is in a foul mood today." The giant lumbered into the kitchen, a truly terrifying figure, his footsteps shaking the floor. He was a mountain of a man, with a scowling face and eyes like burning coals. "Wife!" he roared, his voice like thunder. "I smell a human." The giantess calmly replied, "Nonsense, my love. It's just the smell of the roast I'm preparing for your supper." The giant grumbled, but seemed to accept her explanation. He sat down at the table, and Jack, peeking from under the bowl, watched in terrified fascination as the giant devoured an entire roasted ox in mere moments. After his meal, the giant called for his treasures. First, the giantess brought out a small, ordinary-looking goose. The giant commanded, "Lay," and to Jack's astonishment, the goose laid a perfect, gleaming golden egg. Then another, and another. Jack's eyes widened. A golden goose. This was more than he could have ever dreamed. The giant soon grew sleepy and began to snore, a sound like distant thunder. Carefully, quietly, Jack slipped out from under the bowl. His hands trembled as he snatched the golden goose, tucked it under his arm, and tiptoed out of the castle, his heart racing. He scrambled down the beanstalk, the goose clucking softly, and burst into his cottage, breathless but triumphant. His mother gasped at the sight of the golden eggs. Their days of hunger were over. But the memory of the castle, the thrill of the adventure, and the nagging feeling that there was more to discover pulled at Jack. After a few days, despite his mother's pleas, he decided he must climb again. This time, he was bolder, more confident. He knew the way, and he knew the giantess might even be a little sympathetic. He crept back into the castle, again hiding under the table. Soon, the giant returned, roaring his usual threat. But the giantess again managed to distract him. After his monstrous meal, the giant called for his second treasure. This time, the giantess brought out a magnificent harp, intricately carved and shimmering with a soft, magical light. The giant commanded, "Sing," and the harp, without being touched by human hands, began to play the most enchanting melody Jack had ever heard. Its music filled the vast hall, weaving tales of ancient lands and forgotten dreams, soothing the giant into a deep slumber. Jack was mesmerized. This harp was truly magical, a source of beauty and wonder. As the giant's snores once again filled the air, Jack knew he had to have it. He crept out, grabbed the harp, and started to make his escape. But this time, the harp cried out, "Master! Master, a boy is stealing me!" The giant awoke with a furious roar, his eyes blazing. "Fee-fee-fo-fum," he bellowed, leaping to his feet. Jack didn't wait. He clutched the harp tightly and ran, the giant's thundering footsteps shaking the very ground behind him. He burst out of the castle, the harp's cries echoing through the air, and scrambled onto the beanstalk, sliding down as fast as he could. The giant, enraged, followed him, his massive hand reaching down trying to grab him. Jack could feel the wind of his breath, the tremor of the beanstalk as the giant began his descent. "Mother!" Jack screamed, his voice hoarse with terror as he neared the ground. "The axe! Quick!" His mother, hearing the terrifying roars and seeing the colossal shadow descending from the sky, instinctively grabbed their old, rusty axe. Jack tumbled to the ground, breathless, and seized the axe from his mother's trembling hands. With all his might, he swung it at the base of the beanstalk. The first blow cut deep. The beanstalk shuddered. The giant roared in frustration, closer now, his face a mask of fury. Jack swung again and again, his small body fueled by adrenaline and the desperate need to protect his mother and their newfound hope. With a mighty crack, the beanstalk groaned, then split. A deafening crash followed as the colossal plant, along with the enraged giant, plummeted to the earth, shaking the entire village. Dust and debris filled the air, and when it cleared, the beanstalk was gone, and with it, the terrifying giant. Silence fell, broken only by the gasps of the villagers who had emerged from their homes, staring in awe and terror at the scene. Jack stood panting, the axe still clutched in his hand, his mother embracing him tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face. The golden goose, now calm, nestled at their feet, and the magical harp, no longer crying out, began to play a soft, gentle melody of triumph and peace. From that day forward, Jack and his mother lived a life free from want. The golden goose laid its eggs, and the magical harp filled their home with beautiful music, bringing joy and comfort to all who heard it. Jack, once a timid boy, had found his courage not just in facing a giant, but in daring to hope, in believing in the impossible, and in protecting the ones he loved. The beanstalk might have been gone, but the magic of courage and kindness lived on in their hearts, a warm, comforting glow that never faded.